Welcome to A Matter of Perspective with Judge Derwin Webb. I am Judge Derwin Webb, coming to you from a different location today. We are at the AMPT headquarters, and we are talking to my good friend, Dave Christopher. Now, usually, Brother Christopher, I don't really take orders from anybody else.
I know that's right.
That's what usually happens. But I tell you this, I usually find the talent to be on the show. I usually do the research and bring the person in and try and figure out how we're going to talk about things. But today, I was told that you were going to be on this show today. So, brother, I just appreciate you coming on here, taking time out of your busy schedule, because I had a chance to research you, and I know that you are doing a lot. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being here today. So how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Every day is a good day, for real.
Well, I wanted to talk to you because I know that your story is very important, not only to me, but it's important to the people in the community as well. So rather than go to the end, as I say, let's start at the beginning. Yeah. You're in Louisville right now, but you're not from here. Tell me where you're from and how you got here.
Yeah, I born and raised in Gary, Indiana. Left there when I was just turned 18, went into the Air Force. Did some time in the Air Force, did actually 11 and a half years in the Air Force, got out, got a job. Started my first business, and then, here we are. I mean, it's a lot in the middle of that, like in the center.
Well, I was going to say, I listened to your story. Yeah. You say that you were in the Air Force. Yeah. You're originally from Gary, Indiana. I don't know too many people that say that Louisville is the destination. So
it was not.
And I love the city, but it's a little unconventional to say that you're from Gary. I know you talked about being in Atlanta at one time too. What actually brought you here?
Yeah, so I mean, I ended up in Atlanta because I came here to get custody of my son. To Louisville to get custody of my son. I was actually living in Atlanta. I was working in Atlanta as a project manager, and had my son, and he was with me at the time, and the agreement that we had was that when he turned 10, he could come live with me. That was a verbal agreement, nothing in writing or anything like that. And so I actually started, getting him enrolled in school. And his mother gave me a call and was like, "Hey, when are you bringing Dave back? Dave Jr., that's my son." Uh-huh. And I was like, "Well, I'm not, because we agreed." And she's like, "No, that's too far away from where I am." And she was still in Gary, Indiana. And I said, and it was, the love of a mother. They'll do what they need to do. So I said, "Look, I'm not bringing him back. You're going to have to come and get him." And guess what she did?
She came and got him.
Right, she came and got him. And I tell you, man, honestly, like seriously, that was like one of the worst days of my life, man. Seriously, because I say this, I share this all the time. I'm a recovering alcoholic, 20 plus years clean and sober. And at that time, I had gotten sober when I had my son, because I knew I needed to do that, and I was doing well. And when she came and took him, and I shouldn't say she took him, when she came and got him back, it hit me hard, man. I hit the bottom hard. And by the grace of God, I had through a series of events, had just got promoted to senior project manager, and my manager asked me, "Hey," because they came from Houston to give me the evaluation, promoted me. Said, "Is there anything else that we can do for you?" And I said, "Yeah, I need to move." And they were like, "Well," I said, "This is not a play. I'm not trying to I need to move because I need to be closer in the hopes of getting custody of my son." And they was like, "Well, we'll do what we can." She flew back to Texas, called me the next day and said, "Hey, is Louisville, Kentucky close enough for you?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Well, when do you want to go?" I said, "Yesterday." So I literally sold everything I had, everything for the few real small things I sold, but everything else, threw it into the back of a little U-Haul truck. I had an apartment set up here. I'd done all that over the phone. I came and I was in Louisville. My mother passed away shortly after I got here.
Sorry.
That was on a Saturday, and my son came back to live with me on that Sunday. My ex-wife's mother actually talked her into letting my son come live with me. And he was like 11 years old. My son will be 34 tomorrow.
So you've had a little time here.
I've had a little time. and seriously, I love Louisville. This was a godsend for me. I mean, I started out here clean. You know what I mean? In terms of my alcohol addiction, I started out here clean, and I was able to. God just set me on a path, and here I am. It's 20-some years later, 22 years later.
Well, I didn't have this as one of the questions I was going to ask you, but you have Gary, Indiana, which is a little different from Louisville. Yeah. Atlanta is definitely different from Louisville. What were your first impressions of Louisville when you first got here?
I was just happy to be here, man. I was happy to be here. I was happy especially when my son came and, just trying to figure that whole thing out. So I didn't really even get out and know much about Louisville at all. I mean, I was really just trying to be a parent. I was trying to be, because single dad, and I've since we married, but like I was just trying to figure that out. And so I love the fact that what was interesting is that what I think was just an odd thing to love is that, in Atlanta, if you've ever been in Atlanta or if you've ever lived in Atlanta, you don't get nowhere fast, like nowhere. And I remember the first day I got here, I literally drove to all 3 of the malls because I could. You know what I mean? And I don't even like shopping. I don't even but it just intrigued me that I could just jump in the car and go. Like in Atlanta, if you tell somebody I'll be right over, that's like an hour. So I mean, and then the people were good, man. The people were really cool. The people I worked with, I didn't know them, previously in the office I worked in, but everybody was good. My son got into football, so I was coaching, Optimus League football. And so, I mean, I found a community almost right away. Yeah.
Well, you describe yourself as a self-professed serial entrepreneur. I want you to talk about that, but before we get to that, what were your subjects in school that you liked? Because I'll put it like this. People have that entrepreneurial spirit all their lives. Did you always have that spirit?
Yeah. So, you know what? Honestly, man, I didn't like any of it. Like I was the kid that went to class on the day of the test. Like I grew up in the projects in Gary, and like it was and it was funny because I think when people talk about self-professed, like when you were not self-professed, like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like when you tell somebody who they are, that's who they become, if you tell them enough. And so because I was from the projects in Gary, and people said, that my family, like the family that I grew up with was known for different things that weren't necessarily all that great, I was like, okay, well, that's who I am. And so I was a clown. I mean, I was, the guy that you did not want in your class and that. So I didn't really have a space. The subject, the thing I did, like I was in the, when we did acting, the drama or theater, we did a theater. And so I got to do comedy. And a lot of that was based on like just me being able to joke on you before you could joke on me, because I was wearing the same thing every day. Or like at one point I was wearing my sister's shoes and I just covered them up with my jeans so you couldn't tell that they were, but it was like a defense mechanism for me. But I didn't have, but you know what, like at 12 years old though, you're talking about entrepreneurship, like at 12 years old, because my parents were disabled when I was a kid. So like my mother had Parkinson's, so she was in the bed most of the time. She was undiagnosed. We didn't know what it was, with tremors. My father was 48 years old when I was born. He had stomach cancer, diabetes, and he walked bent over from a bad back surgery. And so he couldn't get a job, and that's where the quote is on the wall where it says, if nobody hire you, then hire yourself. But at 12 years old, I understood somehow that I needed to help. And so I cut grass, washed cars, babysat. I sold gardening seeds one pack at a time. I would sell greeting cards, one to door to door, like one in the Christmas, one door at a time. I convinced a neighbor across the alley from us who used to work on cars to pull his cars into my backyard and let me clean them up before he sold them. So I had a detail shop before I knew what a detail shop was, and my dad was the first entrepreneur I met. And so that was sort of my, like my path. And I was always trying to look for ways, not necessarily to make money, because I never even thought that I would be wealthy. Like that wasn't even the goal. The goal was to like be able to like take care of the stuff I needed to take care of, like not to have to share underwear with my brother, or or not eat, that kind of stuff.
Who were some of your heroes or role models?
Yeah, no, my dad, absolutely. My dad, and it was interesting. My mother, my mom and my dad. My dad was this guy, and I tell people this all the time. My dad taught me that it was okay to break it, and so I've never been afraid to try. Like his thing was like, if you're trying to figure it out, and it doesn't go well, that's fine. Just try it over. Just do it over again. And my mother was really straightforward. Like even in the fact that we lived in poverty and we didn't necessarily eat every day. With Christmases, there were some Christmases with no gifts or whatever. They were always really super honest with us. Like my mother was really straightforward and clear about our situation. So that's what it explained. Like at 12 years old, I was making money and then giving it to my mother. Like, oh, hold this for me, really knowing that this needs to go to the light bill or to the to the utility bill or whatever. And so those are my heroes, man, because they made chaos calm, if that makes sense, right? Like that's why people, like, it's funny because all my life people have said to me, you act like you don't care about nothing. Like you seem always cool and you good and calm, whatever. I was taught that. When the lights were going off, my mother, as calmly as I'm speaking right now, would be like, "Hey y'all, the power won't be on tomorrow. Y'all need to iron as much as you need to, so until we can get some money to get the lights turned back on. If the water was being turned off, go fill the bathtub up, fill up water jugs, whatever, and be prepared." When people were shooting in our neighborhood, which happened regularly, right? The shooting starts. She yells into the other room. Y'all get on the floor. If you get on the floor, wait for the shooting to stop. Y'all get up. But it was just that calm in my house.
You know, I heard the quote one time: adversity doesn't build character, it reveals character. So when you have adversity, it's almost like you've done this before, so you don't really have to worry because you've seen it in a different form in the past and you know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I get that. Let me ask you this. I understand that we talk about entrepreneurship and you being a serial entrepreneur. I got a chance to go on your LinkedIn account and I looked at some of the different businesses that you started. One of the things that's interesting to me is usually anytime I see a resume, I see work from X date to this date, or work from 2014 to 2022.
Right.
One thing that I saw that was very interesting, I want you to discuss a little bit, is that I saw 3 companies that you started. I ain't seen an end date. It looks like you are juggling companies after companies on top of companies. So talk about how are you managing to, you have a great space here, and I love what you're doing. And I've read everything about you, and I love what you're doing in the space that you have right now. And I know that you're doing some more things. How do you keep everything, how do you keep all the balls in the air? Because
I mean, really honestly, and I tell people this all the time, it's simple because I think in terms of how I can do it, not how I can't do it. And so like I was talking to a gentleman today about like we pile all this stuff up that needs, like when we try to get something done, we have this long list of stuff that needs to happen. And that just really complicates it because you can only do one of those things at a time. You know, the whole saying, like, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time, right?
Absolutely.
And so for me, I don't make things complicated. I tell, like, my parents, again, they taught me, here's the problem. The problem is right here. But don't focus on the problem. What about the solution on the other side? And then you just do what you can do, and you do one thing at a time. So for me, like, people think, and this people, I hear this all the time. People are like, man, like, you got to be crazy busy. When do you sleep? Like, you always look. If the people that know me know that you don't necessarily get my evenings. Very seldom do I, like, when my day is done, I'm going home, right? And you don't get my weekends. Like, I tell people this, we joke about this, that my screensaver is a bowl of Fruity Loop cereal, right? Because every Saturday, this is like without fail, every Saturday, I mean, there's some exceptions. Every Saturday, I'm in my pajamas in front of my TV with a bowl of cereal, watching cartoons and cowboy movies. Literally, like that's not like a metaphor. That's really what I do because I'm efficient with my time during the week, and for my mental health, right? I need to make sure that I'm ready for the next week. I don't I'm like people talk about climbing to get to a point. I'm never trying to get anywhere particular. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm never trying to get to a place or a thing. I'm not trying to, like, I tell people I didn't really have a plan. I'm following what God leads me to do and what is good for the people that I'm trying to serve.
That's words to live by, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not that complicated for me, really. I mean, it seems like a lot to people because people think of all the little things, and I have I have great people around me. Like we talked about this earlier, right?
Right.
Like I make sure that I can do it myself, but then that's just to make sure that who I get to do it is doing it right. And I surround myself with really great people that care about what I'm doing. So, like, I've been blessed, man.
Talk about the first business you started yourself.
So as a kid?
Well, as an adult, that was sustainable. How about that?
As an adult, when I lived in Indianapolis, this was really kind of funny. In Indianapolis, I don't know if you remember Gateway Computers.
I do.
Yeah, so I had a Gateway computer, and before you could actually go and like Vista Print and all these people, you could go order business cards online or whatever. I actually used to make business cards and flyers for companies. And then what I would do is I would get a contract, and mostly it was like beauty shops, barbershops, people like that, or beauty supply stores. And basically they were paying for a marketing plan. And so I made the business cards, flyers, that did the specials and stuff for them. And then I would hire kids to like go stand in front of other beauty supply stores and hand out the other person's flyers. And that's what I did that for a while. So I did stationery, I did business cards, I did, and it was interesting because I would go, when I would design them and print them, I would then have to go to another company that would cut them for me because there was no Kinko's or Office Depot or whatever. So I would go take it to a company and have them cut the cards and stuff for me.
That's dope, man. It really is.
That was the first one. The next one was a computer repair. I had a computer repair company for a while. And still, and then it got further into that, and a cleaning company. I still have a cleaning company, and yeah, just.
But let me ask you the question. I know for me, anytime I have a guest, I normally ask one or two people about them. Mm-hmm. The one business that I've heard about you more than anything is Amped.
Yeah.
Talk about how you got started with Amped.
I stumbled into nonprofit. I tell people this all the time. I actually opened up a recording studio because, again, serial entrepreneur, I just love starting businesses. So I was like, okay, I'm opening up this recording studio, and the money that I make from this recording studio, I'm going to give to this nonprofit, and I'm going to just keep enough to run the program. And what happened was I said, okay, well, the only thing I want out of it for me is for kids to be able to come into the studio and just because kids love making beats and recording and stuff, most kids. And so I was like, let's let them do that. Well, shortly after I started that, which is Level 7 Recording Studio, shortly after I started Level 7 Recording Studio, this was back in 2014, and we were having some problems around Derby with kids just kind of running the streets and remember they used to going into convenience stores and tearing stuff up or whatever. Yeah. And so Mayor Fisher put out a call for youth programs. To give kids something to do. And I didn't want to have a program that was just like, and I still say this to this day, a program that just made them tired. I wanted a program that they actually had, like there was an end to it, like they had a product that was done and set. So that's how AMP came about. And I was actually driving up to Indianapolis, going up to, because I had custody of my sister. I was her guardian. She had a stroke, and I was actually on my way to Indianapolis to meet with a couple lawyers about her guardianship and some other stuff, and her, and all the stuff I was doing. And the word AMP popped in my head, and I started playing with the letters. And I came up with Academy of Music Production, Education, and Discipline. And then I sent that to somebody and asked them, what do you think about this? He's like, well, kids won't like discipline, so I changed the Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development. I came back from Indianapolis that night, that night. Because I do graphic design, I designed the logo. The next day, I built a website because I do website design. On that Friday, I called the IRS, got a tax ID, right? I ordered banners, business cards, flyers, all this stuff for the Festival of Face because he was like, okay, we're going to launch these things at the Festival of Face. And what's funny was, I'm set up, I got a pop-up banners, I got all this stuff, and I'm like, I have no intention of doing anything other than showing up with this stuff. I don't have a program. I literally did not have a program. Because I did this in like 3 days.
Right.
Kids were lined up to sign up for a camp that didn't exist. And I was like, crap, now I got to do it.
You actually have to do the work now.
Now I got to do a camp. And so, which again goes back to what the question you asked before, is not that things are simple, but I think of them simply, right? And so, to me, it was just a matter of, okay, well, so I had to do a camp. What do I need? I need this, I'll get that. I need that, I'll get that. I need people, I'll get those people. And I don't stress about, how to get them. I'm just like, okay, that's what I need, go get that. I would give you an example, like my son does this festival. It's called the Louisville Hip Hop and Arts Festival. And they do it every year. It's a really big deal, right? And I remember when he asked me some years ago when they first wanted to start it, he said, Dad, I want to do this festival, but how do I start a festival? I said, son, how many festivals have you been to? He said, I've been to a bunch of them. Well, then what did you see? And literally okay, I stage, security, they sell tickets, they have acts. I said, that's it. Then you know how to do a festival. Just don't overthink it. Just do all the simple things. And so we did the summer camp, and it was a 2-week summer camp.
Right.
And we were blessed that Preservation Hall Jazz Band was actually in town for a show. And they found out about us having this summer camp. They literally drove into the city before even getting to their hotel. They drove their bus, up to the door of the building, and did a second line into the building, and then spent 2 hours talking with the kids. It's like, okay, cool. 2-week summer camp, everything's good. That went well. Woo! They're like, when are we gonna do another summer camp? I'm like, what? We doing this again?
You're like, this is a one-time thing.
Right. I was like, okay. The second summer camp, Dr. Irving, he got his, I guess this is what we call it, so there's doing it along, but like Janelle Monáe, his son, Wonderland, Nat and Nate, and his sons are, they write and they perform with, she showed up the second summer camp. The second 2 week summer camp, she showed up, spent like hours with these kids, and then it just kind of evolved from there. And it was like, okay, so we're gonna teach piano, we're gonna teach drum, and I got to thinking, and I've said this to my son. Me and my son actually started our relationship with music. That's how the recording studio came about, because I was trying to figure out what kind of business that I would create for that nonprofit, and I had built a recording studio for my son. And I was like, okay, maybe this will work for these other kids. And so just kind of built it. It turned into like this thing that we see now.
Let me ask you a question. I'm listening to you, and I'm getting tired just listening to you. All the stuff. Not physically tired, just thinking about all the stuff that you do. What is and I hate when people ask me this because it's never the same, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway. Okay. What's a typical day for you?
A lot of meetings, like talking to people. Like, meeting with people. It is now, because it used to be like when I first started, I mean, I drove the kids around, I fed them, we had other people, but like and even to this day, I mean, I just recently was teaching a class over at Brown School, because we didn't have anybody to teach a videography class, and now Kwaku, our technology manager, is actually teaching the class now. But I mean, for me, and that's the other thing my parents taught me, was like, if it doesn't demean you or physically hurt you, do it. Like, there's no particular role or level or whatever. So even though I'm an executive director and founder of the program, doesn't mean that I can't clean the bathroom or whatever. So the typical day for me is really what needs to be done. Like, I mean, I'm doing more of the, the meeting people and writing, like helping with grant writing and, creating relationships, and like we got a thing. It's like those kinds of things. But I mean, tomorrow I maybe have to be doing something different. So.
Right. Let's talk about something that has affected all of us. Back a few years ago, business is basically shut down. You hear that word pandemic, coronavirus, all those things really shut down business. And you're a businessman. How did you pivot? Because I know you did some pretty innovative things during that time and create some opportunities not only for you, but for some other people as well. What did you do to make things a little bit better?
I mean, so like everything that we do starts from like the need, right? So like when you talk about like the people pivoting, I don't know if we necessarily had to pivot so much as we had to recognize what the need was. Like, and so for us, like, so we're teaching music, and so this is what I tell people. We have a relationship with the people, the kids and the parents and the people that we serve, right? And a genuine relationship that we love them and care. We talk about the AMP family, right? The AMP life. That's real. That's not something we just say. And so the cool thing about there was nothing cool about the pandemic, but the thing that we had to our advantage when the pandemic happened was these were our family members. And so basically it's like, hey guys, we're not having a cookout here. We're gonna have it over here. And so we went in and we literally like wiped all the laptops and desktops in our office clean to be able to deliver them to the doorsteps of the kids and stuff that we serve. We took all the instruments, we sanitized them, we made sure every kid had whatever instrument they were playing. We set up the online platform like everybody else did at Zoom, and the kids showed up. They showed up because they know we still care about them. We did, so we realized that, okay, some people had some food insecurity situations, so we started giving out, Kroger gift cards. We sent out like arts kits for people because, the boredom and the sort of the monotony of the day. We put arts kits together for the families to be able to do together, and then they would send those back to us, and we published them, and we communicated with people that way. So, I mean, we just did a lot of things that just basically related to the need. And the cool thing was that we understood these people and we loved these people, and so we knew what their needs were. And so it wasn't really necessarily a pivot. We kept going in the same direction in a different way.
What is your vision of Black Louisville? Because I know that you give back a lot.
Yeah.
What's your vision of Black Louisville?
I mean, we talk a lot about the wealth gap and generational wealth, right? So here's, like, in 2020, this is where all that stuff came to bear. Like, when people, I'll say it like this, that we were forced to like, through the pandemic and everything, the racial unrest, we were forced to see how ugly we had become. And so all these folks discovered like black folks had it bad. I didn't. It's like I didn't know they had it that bad. They got it this bad, right? So my idea was that okay, so now people are starting to invest in black business development and all these other things. All these dollars come. Some guilt dollars. Some people just really pushing this money out. And my thing was that I want to take this money and do as much as I can with it that you can't take back. And so we're talking about like jobs that pay a living wage, starting a technology training center, this business incubator where we're growing black and brown businesses and saying, okay, because that's the thing. It's like what I tell people all the time, we keep acting like it's not about the money. Like all the things we do to supplement people, that's whatever, right? You can have clothing closets, you can have a food shelter, you can have all those things, right? But the fact is if I put money in your pocket, then you can take care of yourself. There's dignity in that. Right. And so what we've been working on and we always do is everything that we do has completion. Right. So in our music program, the kids get their because we work with JCPS. So we see their grades, attendance, behavior and all that. We get that together. They learn the instrument. We give them the instrument. Mm-hmm. We give them a laptop and a hotspot so they can be at home. They don't have to come see us. So they're not dependent on us. We're talking about getting into independence. In our technology workforce development program, when they go through our program, it's about a year long. But at a point, when they go through the last part of it, we pay them $15 an hour for 40 hours a week for 12 weeks, plus free medical while they train because we're telling them this is your job. Now, we could give them stipends to pay for like transportation and all the stuff we could give them that. But no, we want you to understand that you can earn this, that the dignity in it is that you can earn this stuff. And you don't have to take handouts. In our incubator, you get a year-long, all the things you need for a year for you to go out and be successful. Mm-hmm. And so for Black Louisville, I see us really understanding and accepting that it really is about the money, that we got to figure out how to stop putting Band-Aids on stuff and get to solutions that send people to independence. When we talk about like gentrification, if I get you into a house in a community that's being regrown, right, or rebuilt, right here, like here in Russell, I put you in a house. The problem is, can you stay in that house? Mm-hmm. And if I don't put money in your pocket, and people start building up stuff around here that you can't afford, you're gonna leave.
Right.
So I fix that by saying because I tell people affordable housing is a house that you can afford, and I want everybody in Black Louisville to have the same options that you and I have.
Right. Well, last question. I have many more, but our time would
not let me do
everything.
Go, man.
No, you're good. You're good. My grandmother used to always tell me, "Boy, you don't let the grass grow under your feet."
Right.
You don't let the grass grow under your feet, man. So I know you've heard this question before, because as I'm listening to you, I know there's more. Mm-hmm. So what's next?
I mean, whatever God says. I mean, and I mean that literally. Like I tell people, I didn't have a plan. This is God's plan. Like wherever God leads me to do, whatever He puts on my mind and my heart to do, that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And so it was a natural progression. Like with my board, we had some issues with. We talk about mission drift. Like, oh, Dave, we do music. We don't do this. Yeah, but this is needed, and I'm dead set on doing what's needed, right? And so, I guess my answer to that question would be whatever's needed to get us to where I'm trying to get us to, which is generational wealth and prosperity, and for us to have everything that we need.
Well, I would tell you this. I talk about my grandmother and my grandfather a lot, not on this show, but anywhere else.
Yeah.
I remember our grandparents used to always say that when God orders your steps, you don't need a plan. Looks like you don't have to have that plan because your steps are already ordered.
Yeah, and I sincerely believe that. That's real, because I mean, the thing you have to be careful about, and I try to be careful about, is it God's voice or mine? Mm-hmm. And then I put it to the test. Who does it benefit?
Mm-hmm. Well, I hate to do this, man, because I can talk to you all day long.
No,
but unfortunately, we have to come to the end of the show.
Yeah.
Man, we got to wrap again.
Oh, for sure.
And as we're talking, I'm listening to you. We got a lot in common. University of Louisville, Indianapolis. I'm from Nap.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Nap.
Right
one of my best friends lived in Gary. My best friend now lives in Atlanta. Fraternity brothers.
Yes, sir.
Man, we got a lot of stuff in common, man. So I really want to make sure that we not only have this conversation, but we continue to have conversations and have you back on, because there's so much more that you can add to not only this show, but to our community as well. I want to help get that information out to everyone. For once, I'm going to say this publicly. Fred was right. We had to have this done today. So, man, I appreciate you
Thank you,
taking your
Fred.
time
I appreciate
out.
you, bro.
Man, I appreciate you taking your time out to come on the show and be a part of A Matter of Perspective. And as like we like to close out all the time, I say it's not a matter of what you think. Doesn't matter what I say. At the end of the day, it's always a matter of perspective. Brother, thank you for coming on this show.
Man.
A5.
A5.